So hello, welcome to this week's podcast. I'm really excited to share with you today a journey of, I guess I call not only survival, but empowerment and taking back control of your finances so that you can really live the life that you desire. I'm really excited for today's guest. She's come such a long way from suffering domestic abuse, being a single mum at 19, living in a council house, struggling paycheck to paycheck to even keep a roof over her head, to now successfully running 2 businesses, becoming a homeowner, having a gorgeous husband and family, and an advocate of mental health. So if you're currently struggling with your financial situation, you may be a bit unsure how to get started, how to move forward, if there's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, then this is your episode to really tune in, take notice, and listen to our guest today. So let me introduce you to Louise Willcox. She's a gorgeous mum of 2. We're going to hear more about that shortly. She's a qualified bookkeeper, a money management coach, and a mental health advocate. So welcome, Louise. It's awesome to have you here.
Hi, welcome, Kylie. Thank you for having me. It's great to be on here as well.
Awesome. So you've come so far over the years. So let's go back a bit to kind of the beginning. Tell us a bit about kind of your struggle, how you got started, and what it was like to be in that moment of not really being able to put food on the table.
Yeah, okay. So as you just said, I became a single mum at 19. I actually had my son at 20, so I gave birth at 20. And obviously being a single mum is quite hard. At the time, I was working full-time. So obviously I had my maternity leave and then I was working full-time and obviously trying to support my son as well. But the funny thing is, because I was working full-time, all the help out there, I didn't qualify for it because I was working. And they do things like startup grants and that for when, if you are a single mum earning below a wage, but because I was earning slightly over that, I didn't qualify. So everything, I had to pay for it all. And it was very little help out there. So obviously I did get things like sort of state benefits then, which was a top up of my wage, but it wasn't even enough at the time to, nursery bills over £1,000 a month just to be able to go to work. It just didn't even cover what I needed. And then I went on a bit of a journey really between with my employment, and I moved jobs to be able to be there for my son, because at the time I was actually working in the banking world, and a lot of that, as a lot of people know, you have to work your Saturday hours, and I just couldn't do it. So then I ended up going for another job, and yeah, I mean, it was hard. It was some weeks, I had my family around me supporting me, doing as much as they could. But some weeks it was very much a toss up of, do I put food on the table for myself, or do I pay for, the rent that month just to keep a roof over my head. And my son as well, he actually had issues, like dietary issues at the time. So he had quite severe colic and reflux. So he didn't get on with normal formula. And I had to buy specialist formula, the specialist formula he didn't get on with too well. So I ended up having to put him on goat's milk, which, when you go back 9 years ago, it wasn't quite around as much as what it is now. And I had to go to quite a lot of expensive stores to be able to bulk buy that. And that used to cost me between £60 to £70 a week just to be able to make sure he could actually eat. So it was very much a case of, I would feed my son, and especially when he was weaning, he would eat, and then I'd probably eat the leftovers. And, my parents were great and they would, cook me meals and that. But again, it was because I lived sort of 20-30 minutes up the road, you have to take the travelling into account as well. So it wasn't easy. It was a very tough time. Obviously got through it, but it was very much a juggle of what do you do? What do you pay for? And, you look after your child before yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I don't think you're alone at the moment for sure. So obviously I know it's been a while for you now, so it's really exciting you're out the other side. But obviously at the moment, with obviously economics changing, with cost of living going up, people are facing this on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's really exciting that you're here to share kind of how you got out of that, some of that, and how you manage that sort of process. So I guess in a way, I know now you're really passionate about obviously budgeting and finances and things like that. But what was your kind of turning points when you decided kind of enough was enough, that, there could be a better life for you and your children? Well, your son at the time, obviously children now, son at the time.
Yeah, I think it was, just struggling. And every single month when you're working so hard and you're exhausted at the end of the day, and then you're just living paycheck to paycheck and going, well, what is this? What is life? And you're not even enjoying it. you very much put on a face when you're in that situation. Everyone around you thinks, oh, they're having a great life, it's all okay. But deep down under the surface, it's not often the case. And you're at home struggling with the bills. And, I remember messaging people and just worrying and panicking, and someone's birthday would come up and you're wondering how you're even going to get them a present, how to pay for Christmas presents for your own child. And I did get to that point. I was like, look, there has to be something out there. And you see people online all the time talking about how they're living life and like enjoying life. And I was like, I want that. I want to be able to go through life being able to work. So I do enjoy working, and I think it's really important we show our children that the ethics of work as well. But I wanted to be able to do things that probably wasn't in the norm then, and to actually just be able to wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I'm going for a coffee today, and not have to be sat there going, oh, can I afford that? A couple of pounds, it's gone up more than that now. And I met my husband and we moved in together. But when my eldest son got diagnosed with cerebral palsy, I had to actually go part-time because he had so many appointments. I just could not manage my full-time job and all of his appointments. And bless him, he became a bit of a pincushion at the time because he had an alternative diagnosis. And that became a real struggle. So I was trying to manage appointments, trying to raise my son and trying to work. And it just got very, very overwhelming and a bit too much. And going part-time, obviously, you then take a massive pay cut. And even when I was living with my now husband, it was still very much each month trying and struggling to go, right, okay, we need to do this, we need to pay that. And then if you fast forward, he had quite a major spinal operation to help him walk. And then the NHS is brilliant, but they don't give enough physiotherapy for after that. So then we were looking at private physiotherapy. And then we went into the world of private care, and even simple things such as his wheelchair. We had to buy a private wheelchair because the NHS didn't fund the type of wheelchair we actually needed. And, it's just, the cost of these is ridiculous. And I didn't want to be in a place where I am unable to provide that for my children and, and for myself as well. And my husband, as we grow older, we want to live our life. We want to enjoy our life. And when I retire, I don't want to be having to worry about the money. I want to be going, sipping cocktails in the Bahamas or something like that.
Yeah, I think, and it's really powerful because obviously I know you've got a really strong why, and I love that because, and I think that sometimes we underestimate the power of that. But I think that you touched really importantly there when you were talking about the sacrifices. So I think this is the thing for me. I watch people go through this all the time. And like you said, you can sit there and complain about it. You can sit there and talk about it with family and friends, or you can take action and do something about it. So what's some of the things that you kind of had to maybe give up or shift or do to start to make that shift or change? What was your big shift? I know for me, I gave up TV for 2 years. So that was one of my decisions I made, was I want to do something proactive with my time. I literally didn't have a TV. I gave my TV away, got rid of it. And I went, right, in the evenings, if I'm doing something to move myself forward in my life. And I was working at the time. I was earning really good money, but I didn't want to work for someone else. I didn't want this life in the future. So I was like, okay, what can I give up? What's the sacrifice I'm going to make to get to where I really want to go? So, what did you change? What did you shift? Some of the points that people, they're sitting there at home going, oh my God, this is happening to me, because that's what so many do, to feel empowered. What were some of the things to make you say, look, actually, I can do this?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was mindset and obviously support from those around me as well. So if we go to even just a couple of years ago, I was made redundant from the job I was in because of COVID. And it was at that point, I was a qualified bookkeeper. I'd been doing bookkeeping for a few years and my whole background has been in finance. And I got so fed up with having to ask permission just to go to appointments for my children or even myself at the time. And I went through a really bad time within some of that employment as well. And I got to that point, I went, you know what? I don't want to be in that situation anymore. What can I actually do? And a lot of it is very much around the mindset work and working through that and believing in yourself as well. And I really think it's important that it might not even be a partner, it could be a friend or even someone you meet online that is just there to help you. You can talk to quite openly about your journey and what you would like to do. So, for me, it was very much, I decided to go self-employed because then I actually have a proper work-life balance. So if I need to go take my child to an appointment tomorrow, I don't need to ask anyone. Mm-hmm. And I was very much in that frame of mind that actually for me to move forward, I needed to make changes in my life. And so, yeah, I gave up my career, really. I did give up my whole career to get to where I want to do today. But in doing that, I've built businesses and I've built myself, and I'm much more who I should be today rather than the person who I thought I had to be. And it's getting out of that society normal where you grow up being told, oh, you need to do this, you need to go to school, you need to go to college, you go to uni, and then you do this. Well, actually, you don't need to do that, and you don't need to be doing that 9-to-5 job. And it's just realizing that there are other options out there. And in school, we aren't taught how to manage our finances. We're taught how to do algebra and, all the science experiments, which are great. Yes, I'm sure some jobs need those. I can guarantee as a bookkeeper, I don't need to know algebra. But, we don't
think I've ever used mine.
No, exactly. I do enjoy it, but I've never used it.
Yeah.
But we're not taught how else we can live. And there are so many other options out there. So giving up, I gave up my career and I gave up my life at that time to move myself forward. And it's a huge step. I think when you realize actually there's more options and opportunities out there, and this is something I think especially as women that we need to be discussing and talking about, then your life will move forward.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful. I think, and living in fear of not doing something like that, I think was it a smooth transition for you? I'm really curious. Was it a smooth transition across?
It was kind of, I had no option, I think, at the time, or I didn't feel like I had an option. I could have got another job. I think if I'd gone for one, because I have got a great CV. I've been told by many people my CV is brilliant. But I think for me, I didn't want to have to do the whole, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Be told that I'm then not a team player because I had to leave early one day, even when you're giving back more. So for me, it wasn't a smooth transition because I think at the beginning, when you set any business up, I've never been taught how to do business. I've always been in an employed role. So there was so much learning that I had to do. And you fumble through the first one. And, that self-belief wasn't there. Now I'm a much different person to what I was even at the beginning of this year. So I don't think it's ever a smooth transition. There is so much learning, and it's a constant learning journey when you go along. But for me, because I was made redundant, I didn't have that other job to go back into. So it was very much a case of, right, okay, I'm going self-employed. What do I need to do? Put the steps in place and then advertise and market myself and try and get the word of mouth out as well. So for me, I didn't have that career or that employment that was holding me back. But it was very much, we were then living on one wage with 2 children, a mortgage to pay. We've got animals as well. So it's all of that worry still comes with it. And that kind of gave me the push to really put my all into it and work hard as well.
Brilliant. I love that. And I think, it always takes sometimes a big turning point in our life, doesn't it, to make a big decision like that. It's a shame sometimes, because sometimes that's the thing I see a lot where I'm like, oh, you can make these decisions without a life, I guess, altering type of event. And I really wish sometimes people would take their own initiative, their own motivation, rather than just a life event to do these sorts of things. But I love that you've embraced it. And I think you touched there, especially with me, I remember being in the same situation in corporate space going, I was in the sales environment for a long time doing, 60-hour sales weeks. And like you said, if you have to leave one day early, you were suddenly not important for your pay rise, or, you weren't going for that promotion because suddenly you had to go and have a life somewhere. And you're like, really? I've put in 60 hours as well. I think that's enough. So I totally feel that. And I'm sure there's lots of people out here listening, exactly the same situation where, and especially, no disrespect to men, but I think definitely women suffer more for it, especially if they've got kids and things like that. It's like you said, suddenly you're not committed to your job if you have to go to a child's appointment. It's like, hang on a second. That doesn't mean you're not committed to what you're doing. So I love that you've really embraced that. So let's get down to some nitty gritty in relation to kind of, what you do now. You've come so far in relation to your own, so tell us a bit about kind of what was the thing that got you started on your path of your success now in relation to kind of how you teach now, but more importantly, kind of, what was the things that you started to put into place?
Yeah, so obviously I started my bookkeeping business first, and that for me was the obvious choice, being a qualified bookkeeper, and that's where my experience is. So I started with that business, but I knew I knew from day one that I always wanted to help people with their personal financial management. And I think that's because of everything I've been through. It is very much a passion of mine, helping others get out of that situation where you just feel so stuck and lonely and scared and constantly worrying all the time. So I knew I always wanted to do that. So my bookkeeping business, I was quite lucky, it grew quite rapidly as well, especially starting in COVID. I think everyone going on the online world really helped actually, because obviously with bookkeeping, I can do it quite virtual. So that was great. And then it was kind of more sort of at the beginning actually of this year that I went, look, I actually want to actually properly help people in a personal way as well. Because with the bookkeeping, obviously you help people on a business sense, but you don't ever always get into the personal financial situation. People aren't willing to open up or talk about that as much. So I decided to branch off then and open my second business, which is my Louise Willcox Money Coach, to actually be able to help others. And it's been a whole year of learning, a lot of learning. A bit like you, I haven't watched TV this year. I've actually said to my husband that tonight we need to actually put the laptops away and actually sit down and spend some time together watching a program. So I can't remember. I generally can't remember the last program I watched. And yesterday I had someone, have you seen this on TV? And I went, no, I don't even know what that is, because I haven't. And you do spend all of your time. But I think it is very much, again, it comes down to mindset, getting to that frame of mind that actually it's using your time wisely. And I've used that time in the evenings where I would be sat for 2 or 3 hours watching a program, just looking and doing a course, studying and learning and growing myself to then grow my businesses and to be able to help others out there. And I think with my money coaching business, that's the biggest thing for me. It's definitely helping others get in control of their money and learning how they can grow their wealth, because ultimately that is then how you can change your situation.
I love that, is when you touched like at the beginning around talking about it, because this is why I do this show. This is why I'm out interviewing people like you, because we don't talk about money enough. We're ashamed about it. Lots of people feel really vulnerable about it. Lots of people hide. There's many times, and I've experienced that in my past as well. And we joke about where we're at now, which is lovely, but there's definitely times where I was like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my mortgage this month? How am I going to pay the bills? Like, in your own business journey, you are in control of everything. So, I don't have a partner as a backup. So, it is just me. And sometimes I sit there going, wow, the pressure you feel on a monthly basis when no one's paying your salary is still very much real. Even when you succeed, you still have those doubts and things. So how can I guess, if they're feeling vulnerable about maybe approaching someone like you, or just even, I know when I first went through a bit of a difficult time, the hardest thing for me was to actually put it down on paper, to actually go, I'm in this situation. So if they are, what can they do? How can they get past that first fear? Because it's sometimes just acknowledging you're in that situation in the first place.
It is very much acknowledging it. And I think really deep down when you're in that situation, and it's a case that, I've done it myself, you hide from it and you put on a front, and you don't want people to realize how hard and how difficult it is, because sometimes it can come from embarrassment, especially like myself, you get told that, you should be successful when, people, by the time they were 25, that person paid off their whole mortgage and they were living free. And we are, especially with social media, I love social media, it's been great, but it also has its drawbacks, as you see all these people living what's called the high life, but actually we don't ever see the behind the scenes and under the surface. And it is very much, I think it's taking accountability and acknowledging that actually, yes, okay, you're in this situation, but not just that. We need to really be talking about finance and money in a completely different light. We need to stop saying that debt is bad and that actually, doing that job is not good enough, because these are the sort of things that create negative thoughts, and subconsciously we bring that, we do live that, and we sort of go our life with those standards. But actually those things, they're not bad. Debt needs to be looked at in a different way. If you're in a bit of debt, look at it. Why do you have that debt? I've got a mortgage, that's technically debt, but it's also an asset. So it's looking at it in another light. Okay, so you might have gone on a family holiday that you've put on your credit card because you couldn't pay it off. There are steps you can put in place, so in the future you don't have to put it on a credit card. But instead of looking at that and going, oh no, I've got £1,000 on a credit card, look at it and go, okay, yeah, I've got £1,000 on a credit card, but you know what? We had a really great time. I was able to go on a holiday. I was able to take my kids away. We had ice creams. We went on a boat trip. We went to the beach and we had a fantastic holiday. So yes, I need to pay that off. But the memories that I got from that trip, they made us feel good. And you know what? Money comes and goes all the time. And I could tell you that from being a single mum to where I am now, money comes and goes constantly. But those memories and those things that you made with that money, they stay with you forever. And I think it is just looking at everything in a different light, acknowledging where you are and taking the time to really realize that. And then, yes, reach out and go, okay, yeah, send a DM. I'm always open to people DMing me. You don't have to go public about it. You can speak to someone privately and just say, look, I really don't want to be known. Can I have a chat with you? And in the finance space, we all should and do, or I especially do know that it's a very personal topic. And, I offer group sessions, I've got my course, but I do also offer one-to-ones for this very reason. And I know when I was at the beginning of my journey, I would not have gone online and shouted about it. For me, it would have been a one-to-one. And even that one-to-one of someone I didn't know, I would have struggled to talk about it. I remember when I was a PA, someone asked me how much I earn an hour. And I looked at them, well, that's rude. You don't ask that kind of money. Now people ask me, I go, yeah, well, I don't actually work hourly. I work like this. And I tell them. And it is just working through that. And you'll find that when you start reaching out and start taking control of your money, your whole shift will happen on how you talk about it and deal with it. So the best way to do it is actually take accountability and go, yes, I've got this here. What can I do and how can I improve this? Reach out, send a message or even an email. And it could just be, again, it could be a family member, a close friend, just someone who you can really trust to talk to about it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think acknowledging it is so important. But I think being open like this, like you said, the more safe spaces we create where women can come and have these types of conversations, I think is really, really powerful. So I love that. And I love that you kind of, so you embrace that, you got started. I know now you have a massive passion for budgeting. But like you said, budgeting in a different way, because I'm with you, because I think for me, money is just a resource. For me, it comes, like you said, it comes and goes. But yet, especially as women, I've noticed in the coaching space and working with business owners, is that we put so much self-worth into it. We put so much personal attachment to it. For me, it's just, I guess maybe that's my sales environment. I don't know. For me, it was always very much, it's just a transaction. It's just money. It makes the world go round. So in relation to kind of mindset around money and letting go of it in relation to kind of being, I guess, trusting the space, what's a couple of mindset things you do in relation to kind of being okay, like you said, because I think you have to acknowledge where you're at. You have to acknowledge whether you're okay with it. I love that you put a positive spin on it, because like you said, debt gets you to some place. It got you, like you said, something you've done, something you've thing. If they've got one activity, what's one of your favorite kind of mindset activities that you do?
Yeah, so for me, especially what I've used in the past is actually going through, I always say about looking backwards on your accounts as well. So your bank statements, then look through them. And even if it's a credit card or your main bank, actually look at what you have spent. And then actually don't look at the money side of it. Look at what it is that you've done. Again, what I just spoke about, and actually go, okay, how did you feel at that time when you spent that money? What were you doing? What was your goal on that day and why did you do it? Because it's those feelings that you want to remember. It's not the money that you spent now, because now you're looking at it in a negative way. But actually at that time, it was good. It was positive. Again, like when you put that money on the holiday on your credit card, you're super excited about it. You have a fantastic time. And then suddenly it's like, oh, but we've got that money we need to pay off. And you completely change. But actually, no, look at it. Look at what you have spent and write it down, physically write it down. Because when you repeat things, I think someone I said to the other day, you have to repeat something, is it 20 times for your brain subconsciously to really take it in? So write down those feelings and the positive feelings around it and do that daily for a whole month. And actually, you will realize that actually the way you're viewing your finances do completely, it all shifts and it changes.
Yeah, the power of writing down is so, so important. I was talking to someone else the other day, and I won't go into the detail of it because it was around helping a child get out of something. But again, they just made them write down the positive side of it for 21 days, literally repeating it 21 days in the morning and in the evening. And the problem they had completely gone, completely shifted, completely changed, because the way that she was framing it was completely different. So I really love that. Yes, the power of journaling, the power of writing things down on a daily basis and reframing things. So like you said, if something is a negative, what's the positive out of it? So reframing is so important. So tell us about, I know now that you love helping other people. So you've obviously, you've got to the stage where you're in a great situation, and now you're helping others do the same. You've got a fabulous strategy called BAMIS. I think that's what you call it, BAMIS. Tell us a bit more about that, how it can help other people, and kind of just elaborate on kind of your strategy, what you do now.
So for that, yeah, it's called BAMIS, which you know, I don't know if it's a real word, but I've made it up, so it's a real word now. You know, it's a great thing about language, isn't it?
Exactly.
But for me, it's very much my step-by-step process that, you know, I actually have taken and I go through with my clients who I work with on how to get their finances to the next level. So for me, the B is budgeting, A, accountability, M is mindset, I is increasing your wealth, and S is self-care. Because obviously, I am, like I've said before, really huge on the mental health and the self-care side. So I think when you go through your budgets and your finances, it is so important to make sure when you do that journey, you actually have time for self-care in there as well. So yeah, that's my BAMIS.
Tell us a bit more about that. Why are you so strong in relation to advocate around mental health and self-care?
Well, I think for me, you know, I actually, I think now I look back on it, I realised that for a lot of years, I have actually struggled with my mental health. And I didn't ever actually realise that even as a teenager, you know, I got bullied quite a lot at school. I got bullied my whole school life. And I think, you know, it created a lot of anxiety. I was one of those, I couldn't walk into a room without my head held high. I would have my eyes down to the floor. If someone spoke to me, I'd be shaking. I wouldn't know how to reply. I'd walk away panicking that, oh gosh, I've just said that. Have I offended someone? Do I worry? And it wasn't actually until, you know, in my mid-20s, and it all came about because I got married to my husband. And 10 days later, I actually had a nut allergic reaction to a nut. And I've eaten nuts my entire life. And literally overnight, my whole life got thrown upside down. I went into anaphylaxis. At 2 a.m, I woke up not being able to breathe. And I went from being able to, you know, I ate cakes with nuts on at my wedding. So, you know, it was 10 days later. It was crazy because it's been something I ate that day. So for me, my whole life literally overnight got completely thrown upside down. And I had already, before that, I had already had a bit of a, you know, when I had my second son, I had a really complicated birth, and I actually nearly lost my life there as well. So for me, in just a space of a couple of years, I had very much had a couple near-death experiences.
Wow.
And I love food. I'm a huge foodie. I really do love my food. So for me, I went from being able to eat everything and being able to go out and enjoy what I want overnight. I was too scared to put a slice of bread in my mouth in case I reacted to it.
Yeah.
And it got too much and overwhelming. And I then couldn't leave the house. I was having severe panic attacks. I was having really bad anxiety attacks. I would be taking my children to school and I'd be having to phone my husband, calling him back for work because I was struggling so much. I was having a panic attack and then I'd end up in the hospital. And I didn't actually eat properly for a whole year. And it was actually
because you'd be so paranoid about what's in something, wouldn't you? Because you had such a major reaction to something.
It was,
so
it was
suddenly,
and not just that. I didn't, you know, I didn't understand the allergy as well. And when you look online, because that's where you immediately goes online, and the whole online is so scary because I didn't know how severe my allergy was as well. So my children would eat something and they actually couldn't touch me until they'd gone and washed their hands and washed themselves because I was so scared of reacting. So for me, my whole life literally overnight just got completely torn apart. And, you know, it must have been incredibly hard for my husband as well, because every day he had his wife on the phone going, I need you to come back. I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But I went from being that mum, because I've always been independent. I think being a single mum, I've always been independent. Part of the reason I've always worked so hard as well is I don't mean this against men, but I will never, ever financially rely on a man. I know that I can financially rely on myself. And I think that's a big thing for me. So I went from being me and being able to rely on myself to really heavily relying on someone else. And that was hard, really hard as well. So from that, then when COVID hit, actually, because we were furloughed, my husband was home and actually I went, you know, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. And I actually started then slowly eating food. You know, I know it sounds silly, but I'd get a grape out the fridge and I'd lick it to see if I was okay eating it, kind of thing.
Oh, bless you.
And
wow.
that's the reality of it. You know, to make sure that I didn't react to it. Because I've actually got a condition which is called oral allergy syndrome. So it's to do with tree pollen within the food I react to. So it's, and because of how much goes into the nuts, that's how your body reacts to it. It reacts as if anaphylaxis. So I now can't eat plums and I can't eat strawberries at certain times of the year. And I can react to most fruit and veggies at times of the year. So it really did, for me, it was just a whole complete shift in my life. Wow. And then in COVID, I started running because I just really I realized I was a bit unfit then. And it gave me that time out the house because we were allowed to exercise. And I absolutely love it. I love running now. It gives me, and I realized that I had excess energy. And from running, I immediately felt calmer. My mind felt better. And I just felt happier. And then I slowly started eating more food because my husband was home all the time. I felt more comfortable. And from there, I've just built them. And this year, I very much went, you know what? I have done all this. Now I need to be finding me. I need to find who I am. I'm not that person who I have been. Who am I? And I've spent a lot of time actually working on myself. So for me, I think it's so important. And I talk about it a lot because of my journey and what I've been through. And I know how hard it is. And self-care is something as a mum, especially, or a parent, or even when you're in the business space, we forget about that. We get so busy with our lives and we've got one thing after another constantly on our to-do list. But actually, if you go, when you take that time going to the gym or you take that time going for coffee, the world's not going to end. So you need to ensure you have that time for yourself, because if you lose yourself, what have you got? You can have all the money in the world, but you cannot buy a new body and a new mind.
No, I love that. I mean, I went through a difficult time with, like you said, with COVID, because I was by myself for nearly 2 years. Really, like, it was crazy. And exactly the same thing. The self-care was so important. It's taken time out. I got into a lot of long walking during that period of time, because I was just like, I need the headspace. But I also just needed the different environment, the shift in the environment. So, and now, like you said, I'm very, very conscious as my business grows, like you said, as you get busier. I don't have kids, so they don't occupy me, but loads of other stuff does. But I have to book myself in the diary. So I have a fake client that goes into my diary on a regular basis, and that's my time out. That's my space for myself. Because my coach turned around and said to me one day, he said, if you had a client that needed you desperately, you'd make the time. And I was like, you're so right, I would. You'd you'd work it out, you'd maneuver stuff, you'd make the time. And I said, yeah, I would. And he went, so that's you. He said, you need to start to make that time for yourself. And I think that, like you said, I see it all the time with mums, they're constantly give. And it's wonderful. They're brilliant mums, they're brilliant wives, they're brilliant whatever, but they never have space for themselves. And it is so important because it keeps you alive. The most of the struggles I see normally with women with, relationships with partners and stuff, it's because they've lost themselves. So I really honor you for doing that, because I think that, you acknowledge where your journey is, you've acknowledged what you've been through, but also it's just a continual process, isn't it? It never stops. Yeah, whatever you're doing, it never stops. So I really, really love that. I love what you're doing, because I think that, I'm totally passionate about helping women, empowering them to take back control of their money, take control of their finances, so that they can really, like you said, make an impact on others and be self-sufficient. When I do the statistics, when we look at, what is it, 1 in 5 British women in the UK are going to be in poverty in retirement. It's crazy. There's so much around us. There's so many resources around us. So, the first step is, like you said, work with someone like Louisa, take control of your finances. Don't be shy, don't be scared. It's just the first step. And Louisa's shown us there is a way out. There's a way out to the other side, no matter where you're starting from. I think it's really important. So in relation to that, I think that you've done so much around budgeting and kind of, being aware of it, and I know you don't do budgeting. I love what you do with budgeting, because you don't do it for a sense of lack. So when some people hear the word budget, they go, oh God, that means limitations. So how do you perceive budgeting? So what do you look for when you're thinking about budgeting? Why do you do it? Yeah, I just want to alleviate that. Oh my God, that means I have to give loads of stuff up, because that's what people immediately think.
No, so it's not a diet. At the end of the day, budgeting is not restrictive. And again, this is something that we are told, when you budget, you need to cut down on stuff. It's not about necessarily cutting down on stuff, but it's about looking at your money and being financially aware is the biggest thing. How many times do we go, oh, there's a subscription, let's sign up for that, and then we forget about it. So budgeting is about looking at your budget, your finances, going through where your money is going, and acknowledging how your money is actually working for you. So, when you go through it, your TV subscription, are you actually getting enjoyment out of that package? Are you actually using it for a start? Because we forget sometimes that, if $5.99 goes out of our account, it's quite easy just to tick over and forget about it. But actually, go through it and actually look and go, right, okay, how is that working for me? Is it something that's bringing value into my life, or is it making something more secure? And then you keep it. But if you look and go, okay, that's not adding much value. I probably don't need that anymore. We're not using it. That's then when you get away with, you take it away. And okay, there are some things that we don't have a choice, council tax, for example, water and rates, we have to pay those. Otherwise you will end up in a bad situation. But it is just about just being mindful and making sure that the way you are spending your pennies, that's how you want them to be spent. And then you go through it and then you add in the elements. So I always say when you budget, you also ensure you've got your self-care pot, whether that's £50 a month. Then you make sure that you have your food and your fuel pots, and you include obviously your savings, or if you've got if you've got debt, you include the money that's going onto the debt, and you make sure you've got money there going into different money pots as well.
I really, really love that. And I think that, one thing I've noticed there is, we talk about wealth and growing wealth as well. And it's like, I love that you sort of, when you do mindful spending, it's like you said, how often can you have something that comes out of your account that you don't really use? Like you said, you don't necessarily acknowledge it's just being paid for. I mean, how many times we heard with gym memberships that there's people that pay gym memberships for years before they cancel them. And it just amazes me. And it's like, and I'm a sucker for it, because obviously being an online business owner, I'm testing different products. I'll test a platform, I'll try another gadget. Then oh my God, I haven't cancelled that. I did one the other day, and, I was saving £100 a month. I was like, oh my God, I forgot I was even on that, because I was testing out a new platform. And I'd got into it for the trial and I'd forgotten to cancel it for a couple of months. So it's so important. I love that you do mindful spending, and that's really important, because from the other side of it, when we talk about building wealth, a lot of women out there think that they have to start with massive amounts of money. And one of the strategies that I have is, like I said, I haven't taught this yet. I'm not teaching it yet until I get to a certain level. But, I started an index tracker. I learned this off of Ann Wilson from The Wealth Chef. I acknowledge where it's come from. And, I just put, it's literally $25 at the moment. I'll probably up it to 50. I'll probably up it to 100 soon. But I just wanted to do it low, because I want to create some case studies for Iconic Wealth. And, but the thing is, as soon as it starts to come out, I haven't even noticed it. I don't think about it. It's gone. It comes out on a regular basis as a direct debit. So I guess that's one thing for me I love about you, is when you're thinking about your mindful spending, it's like, well, like you said, if you're thinking about that one extra takeaway, well, that 20 quid takeaway, 25 quid takeaway could be your investment for your kids' future. Yeah. It could be the house deposit they might need. It could be your next holiday. So, that for me is what I really love about what you do, is you get into that detail to create that mindful spending. It's really, really powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
No, that's okay. I think, that is just it, like what you hit on as well, is when you go through it, it is very much looking at as well the way you are spending things. Like you just said about a £25 takeaway. It's funny you say that, because, I actually was working with someone the other day. We went through her budget, and in 1 week of the month, she had spent £600.
Oh my God.
So that was just 1 week of the month. And she went, I don't even know what has gone on. So already just working with me, she saved £600 there.
Yeah.
And then again, I spoke to someone about making fakeaways instead of takeaways, because we all get a takeaway, but
What's a takeaway?
A takeaway is basically your homemade takeaway.
Okay.
Making it yourself. So instead of going and buying a pizza from a takeaway, you make it yourself.
Take the time to make it yourself.
Perhaps in the slow cooker, there are so many ways you can do it, and it's so much cheaper as well.
Yeah.
And you can save your money there. And just by doing that, saving, you could be saving £20, £20 to £30 a week doing that. Yeah. And if you add all that up, then you can use that money that you were already spending to put into, increasing your wealth and actually growing not just your future wealth, but also your generational wealth as well.
It's legacy.
So you've got children, your children's children too. But you can then start to put that towards your investing or even passive income, and ways that you can actually look at growing your income. So talk about that a lot as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is so important. I mean, I was doing that. I got into a bit of a habit in the second lockdown. First lockdown, I was like really super on it. And the second lockdown, I didn't. And then it's so easy to get a habit though, isn't it? It's like you said, because you just think, oh, I'm not really spending that much, or it's once a week or whatever. But like you said, once a week adds up to 100 quid. And you're like, and because I wasn't going out with it, because it was lockdown, I was getting it delivered. And actually, when I stopped getting it delivered, I saved 20 quid just for going out and getting it myself.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, that took me 10 minutes to go and get it. And I've just saved myself 20 quid. So it was fascinating. I hadn't realized how all these apps are terrible, because they really triple even a treat like that. So, yeah, get off your apps. I can say that one.
No, it's so
yeah,
true, and it's so quick.
yeah,
Literally one click and the money's gone now, and it
yeah,
is so fast. But the other
yeah,
thing is we are so busy as well every day in our lives. And when if you are doing a 9 to 5 job, or if you're self-employed and you're working, we're so constantly busy. But actually, thinking about our dinner and our food is usually the last thing we do. So we get home, then it's, oh, I'm hungry. Oh, what have I got? I haven't got anything. So you order a takeaway. So this is then again where the budgeting comes in and the meal planning comes in, and actually just being a bit more organized and going, right, okay, what is it we can do? And utilizing things such as your slow cookers as well, because they are fabulous.
I love
use
slow
those so
cookers,
much.
yeah.
I love my slow cooker.
Yeah, really powerful. So I really love that. So that's a quick tip for you. So if you're sort of sitting there thinking about it, like you said, start with this mindfulness, start to look at your budget, start to look at what you're doing and get started that way first. And then obviously you can come and learn and speak to someone like Louisa to find out more about how you can then take it forward. So if there was one, let me get you to share one tip around building your wealth, what would it be? What's your one tip for someone if they were just getting started or they're at that even investment stage? What's your one tip around building wealth?
I think very much, definitely concentrate on where your money is going and actually work out how much you actually have to put towards building your wealth. And then from there, you need to look at what it is that you might have to pay off. So if you've got a debt, a mortgage, when is it you're looking to be mortgage free? So, for me, I'd like to try and get rid of my mortgage a little bit quicker than what the term actually is. So it might be that some of the money that I have, I will actually put towards paying off the mortgage quicker. And then some of it I will be putting into an investment. It could even be that you go, okay, I'm not doing investing at the time, but how else can I bring more money into my pocket? So then you look at other ways you could actually be bringing money in. So I think it's very much actually, again, is the budget and understanding what you have and how your money is, and then putting that money that you then save yourself or, you have spare to actually work harder for you.
Yeah, it's about making money work harder, isn't it? And getting creative with investments and what you can do. And like you said, your knowledge, your skills, I love it because obviously I create courses and assets and things like that. For me, people have so much knowledge they're sitting on already. So it's like, how can you package that up? How can you sell it? How can you use it? I was talking to someone the other day, they're going to create their first workshop. They've never thought about running a workshop. She runs a really successful photography business. And I said, get everyone together, run a workshop. And she's like, oh my God, that would cover the cost of the hire of her studio, which is what she was trying to cover each month. And I said, well, maybe just run one day workshop. It would probably cover your costs. So again, look at ways you can create some additional income at the moment. So really get creative as well. So I really, really love that. This has been a really powerful conversation in relation to kind of, if someone's sitting there feeling like they're a bit overwhelmed, they don't know where to start, or they're just facing difficult times and unusual periods. So, even if you're really successful, quite often you can still hit a wall sometimes. You can hit a different period. We've had businesses go broke. We've had, like you said, redundancies. Things happen unexpectedly. So, start to take back control. Start with the basics first. Work on your foundation. So, thank you so much for everyone tuning in, whoever's listening today. Louisa, where is the best place for people to find and connect with you so that they can, get to know you a bit more?
So I'm most active on Facebook, and I have a group that you can go into called Managing My Money. But I am also on like LinkedIn as Louise Willcox and Facebook, and I've now got TikTok as well as Louise Willcox Coach.
Brilliant, Louisa. That's awesome. And obviously we'll have the links around this video or below the podcast, depending where you're tuning in from, to make sure that you can. And I'm sure we might be able to get a little secret freebie from Louisa somewhere that you can also go and download. Check her out. Like you said, this is your time to really embrace it. Like I said, don't shy away from it. Don't be scared. Don't have any fear around it. There are incredible women out there to support you. It is your time to take control. You can change your future at any time where you're at. And it doesn't matter whether you're young, old, new, starting. You can always turn things around. I know so many people have turned their lives around in a really, really short space of time. So, Louisa, thank you so much for your time. It's been incredible having you here. And we look forward to continuing watching your journey, seeing how you develop and where you go over the next few years. I know there's going to be some big, incredible things happening too. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me as well. It's great talking to you all.
Wonderful. Thanks for listening in. Bye for now. See you on the next one.